You have made international news.
God, you're going to have to bring it up.
With your comment. We have a clip of it. Here, you don't have headphones, but you know what you said. I actually played this earlier and said, really what you're saying is kind of true. You know, at least the police here aren't raping people with toilet plungers or raping women. But there you're admitting, though, that in North Korea and Mexico and Nigeria, the police are not too good.
Listen, police is imperfect everywhere in the world because the human condition is imperfect. And, you know, I wish I could go back and take back that analogy, because people that want to hate on the police, that want to create more mistrust of the police, have turned that into, at least she wasn't raped, which is absolutely not was not on my mind. That is not what I meant. But, you know, it is what it is.
No, in fairness, I actually agree with what you said, but I can see how they took it out of context. You're saying, hey, usually it's a controversy of rape or corruption.
I mean,
At least this is just them, you know, taking a woman to jail.
Yeah, listen, there's a lot of misconceived notions on what happened there. This was, people saw a lady just sitting there screaming on the top. All that video shows is a young lady sitting down, screaming, using profanity.
For those that don't know, she was jogging and couldn't hear them saying stop.
Well, she passed an officer's. We weren't there to write tickets. We were there to try to get these young people to make better choices. We had, within a couple of hours of that incident, we had another young lady or male, I don't remember if it was a man or a woman, go across the street in front of a bus, got hit by a bus. The next day we had 3 more people.
It is true that the bikes and pedestrians do run out in front of cars all day downtown.
It's crazy. And so the bottom line is she did not get arrested for carrying an ID. You don't have to carry an ID in the state of Texas when you're a pedestrian or when you're riding your bike. But if the officers are going to write you a ticket, you have to say who you are so they can write you the ticket. You can sign your promise to appear, and you're on your way.
The answer is like the Running Man. If we all wore explosive necklaces, when she didn't stop, they just blow her head off.
No, that's not.
No. The TSA is actually looking at taser bracelets to fly. Would you like to put a taser bracelet on yourself?
No, I'm not. I'm not sure that I'd be very interested in that at all.
Why not have explosives at birth planted in the brain? So if the government's mad at you, they just hit a button like Snake Plissken.
God, I love you.
Have you seen Escape from New York?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite movies. I love that movie. That's a great movie. The original. I didn't like the Escape from L.A.
No, the Escape from L.A. wasn't that good.
But it's been too long. I miss you guys.
Hey, talk about yourself a little bit. Your dad worked for the CIA in gun running against Fidel Castro, and now you work to get the guns here in America.
No, first of all, let me just say this, make it real clear. I will never support a gun control. I don't think that that's the answer. For me, it's more important to ensure that we do what we can to keep guns in the hands of law-abiding Americans of sound mind. And it's not about different weapon system. It's about making sure we do our best to keep them in the right hands. And that's law-abiding people that aren't crazy and people that aren't felons.
Are you a robot?
Of things, robot's not one of them. I've been called communist and fascist.
Who did that?
And everybody. I had
including me?
Some guy from, yeah, including you. But you know better. You know that I'm actually a pretty moderate guy.
Hey, seriously, though, we have the clip of you talking about this woman that got arrested for not stopping when she ran across the street jaywalking.
Jaywalking. It's jaywalking is mid-block. It was for crossing against the red, not obeying a traffic control device.
Oh, so crossing across a red. Okay.
Yeah.
So here is the clip that's gone nationwide from Japan to England of him saying, at least our officers aren't raping people. Here it is.
That we actually had the audacity to touch somebody by the arm and tell them, oh my goodness, Austin police are trying to get your attention. Whew. In other cities, cops are actually committing sexual assaults on duty. So I thank God that this is what passes for a controversy in Austin, Texas.
So in other cities, they're actually having sexual assaults. You're glad that this passes as a controversy.
Well, listen, I would never, it breaks my heart in the time of instant information. Anytime a police officer falls short around the globe, because we're all painted with the same wide brush. And it was a bad analogy because I didn't know at the time, but it ended up being twisted. But, you know, Austin, life's about points of reference. Austin is such a great city, and our department is such a good department.
Well, I've been all over the country. I have to say the police are nicer in Austin than almost every other city.
Well, thanks. I mean,
the big cities, in small cities, are usually pretty nice.
And Alex, over the years, you've been a soldier for InfoWars, and you've confronted our cops, and they've never really put their hands on you. They've always been pretty professional, even before I got here. I've seen a lot of the videos, and you know, the frustration for me is this. I hold my cops to a very high standard. Our officers here get fired for things, and in a lot of departments they don't. And then this is the controversy. You don't get the option of opting out of a ticket by refusing to give your name.
I hear you, but here is the controversy, and then we're going to bring in the new Molon Labe women's shirt for your wife. Would you like a come and take it, your 300 shirt?
Well, let me see what it looks like.
We've got it. Bring it in here. The gold shirts, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, Arte Saveda, let's get a shot. Hold it up there, product placement with the Austin Police Chief. Hold it in front of the camera. Camera's right over here. See, right there. Oh. And does that not look good or what?
Yeah, it looks like the 300.
Yeah, and it's got the M4s crossed there. You think your wife will like that? Is that the right size for her?
Yeah, that's fine. You
got any daughters? What about daughters?
We've got Anna Sabana out there that would love one.
Let's give her one. Bring her in here. Bring your assistant in here. Available at InfoWarsStore.com. Helps fund the operation. Hey, you see the new studio? You like it?
It is fantastic. It's phenomenal.
I was too busy to ever launch it.
Well, when are you going to launch it?
Well, that's really small. That's like a small woman. I'm going to launch it in the next couple of weeks. We got a bunch of cable systems ready to pick it up. Let me ask you a serious question. I heard you a few months ago on the morning show with Sergeant Sam say, quote, follow police orders, even if you think they're unlawful, and you won't get hurt.
Well, I mean, if you look at police officers generally, and I can speak to 28 years of experience, generally are responding to the actions of somebody. That's why our use of force policy is called response to resistance. I tell my kids, you don't fight a battle with the cops on the street. If you've been mistreated or you think you got falsely arrested or the ticket's not valid, there's a process to do that. And so I always tell them is that we take our grievances through the courts, through the police monitor's office, through internal affairs, but you just don't do it on the street. And, you know, it really saddens me when I see folks running from the police. They get themselves hurt over silly violations that in Austin, Texas, might get you a slap on the wrist and you're putting yourself at risk running. It's just, it's something that has
or it might get you shot in the back.
Well, I mean.
We're here at the spot where last week 4 Austin police officers were needed to subdue a single female jogger. The original offense, jaywalking. She was later on arrested for the failure to identify to an officer. What happened to the Miranda right to remain silent? What happened to the Fifth Amendment? What happened to the First Amendment? The freedom of speech. Doesn't that also include the freedom not to speak? Let's find out what these students have to say. Hi, excuse me. Hi. What do you think about the jogger who got arrested out here last week?
I actually think it's kind of funny because I cross the street all the time.
What do you think about the jaywalker who was arrested last week?
I don't know the whole story, do you?
I don't know the whole story, but with what you heard, do you have any opinion? Because they say, well, she was officially arrested for failing to identify to an officer. It wasn't the jaywalking charge. But just the police resources, do you think it's a good use of a police resource to be out here busting jaywalkers, just cracking down on jaywalking?
I don't know. That's sort of like, do you still beat your wife, right? You can't really beat your wife. You can't say whether you did or not because you'd be guilty either way.
I don't necessarily agree with his comparison to beating your wife. I mean, busting a jaywalker is busting a jaywalker.
My thoughts are that's pretty ridiculous, but it was a white girl in a nice part of town, and if it was anybody else, it wouldn't have made the news.
If somebody gets hit from jaywalking, then that's their problem. You don't need 4 cops involved.
I think he shouldn't have got arrested, or she shouldn't have got arrested.
Why is that?
Because she was just crossing the street.
Right. Well, the official reason given for her arrest wasn't so much that she crossed the street, it was because she failed to identify to an officer.
So that means she didn't show her ID? Is that the...
Well, she didn't provide the Austin Police Department with as much information as they desired. I mean, are you familiar with your Miranda rights?
Yes, I am familiar with.
Can you tell me one of the Miranda rights?
You have a right to remain silent.
There have been contradictory reports. The police are saying that they were in the young lady's field of view when they tried to grab her. There have been other reports that saying that the officers approached her from behind.
Quintero doesn't think the officer did run up beside her, like Acevedo said.
I think he grabbed her slightly from behind, and it may not be from far behind, but enough to where she didn't notice who was grabbing her right away.
So if you were out jogging, you got your headphones in, you're a single woman alone, and somebody just grabbed you from behind, what would your reaction be?
I would have kept running.
All I read was that she didn't see them coming and they grabbed her from behind.
Whether or not he grabbed her by behind, it doesn't matter. It's not relevant. At some point, she knows it's a cop.
If somebody was to grab you from behind for any reason, what would your reaction be?
Definitely do exactly what she did, kick their ass.
Excuse me, miss, you were jaywalking there for a second?
Her class, I'm sorry.
Okay, so she has to go to class, and that's a good reason to jaywalk. I just want you to know you get arrested by the Austin Police Department. And let me ask you about some comments that the police chief made. He said that, the big controversy of last week was that a jogger was arrested, for failing to identify. He says, in comparison, in other cities, you have officers who are actually sexually assaulting people. So does that concern you at all that the bar has been set kind of low? He later came back and, took back those comments, but do you think that's a good place to set the bar?
No, this has nothing to do with sexual assault. You can't compare that.
Now, he has later come back and rescinded those comments, but do you think that's kind of a bad place to set your bar, your standard, that at least we're not out here raping people?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's totally uncalled for. I can't believe they would say something like that.
That's ridiculous. I think that's an awful comparison. I mean, that's not a good standard.
In other cities, cops are actually committing sexual assaults on duty. So I thank God that this is what passes for a controversy in Austin, Texas.
Be careful, because they're rolling, they hating, they're trying to catch you walking dirty.
I know.
As I jaywalk across the street, I can't help but think about the Austin Police Department. The Austin Police Department who would shoot an unarmed man in the back, even though he doesn't match the description of a bank robbery suspect. About the Austin Police Department who would show up to the wrong address, shoot your dog, and shrug their shoulders and walk off as if nothing happened. Wouldn't these efforts, these police resources, be better served down at City Hall, demanding that fluoride be taken out of the water, or demanding that GMO be taken out of food, or arresting the bankers who devalue our currency every day? So if you come to the city of Austin, Texas, and you find yourself arrested, the situation initiating from a jaywalking response, you can rest assured that the bar has been set high. At least you're not being raped by the police. I'm Jakari Jackson for the InfoWars Nightly News.
The globalists have controlled the mainstream media for a long time, but now they're expanding, making the weaponization even more vicious and deceptive. All the major networks are state-run.
We are partnering this year with the NFL.
The NFL has become a political weapon against the Second Amendment and pushes Obamacare. MSNBC tells us that our children belong to the state.
We have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities.
The brainwashing media machine has been turned up on high, and it's time for humanity to double down on the true people's media and strike back against the tyrants that are destroying our civilization with their lies and fraud. We are the resistance. You are the resistance. You are the info war. It is more important than ever to realize that we are not the alternative media. We are the true media. The establishment dinosaur press is dying.
We are in an information war, and we are losing that war.
Join us at InfoWarsNews.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. Members can share their memberships with up to 11 people. By subscribing, you will literally be buying war bonds in the info war to expand our operation in the face of the tyrants. Join us at PrisonPlanet.tv. Visit InfoWars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.